taxes and hurricanes. When the hurricane hit, we had a severe damage to our tax base. If Prop 11 passes, blowing the tax cap, the property that remains after a hurricane will have to make up for the damaged property. Your taxes will skyrocket if Prop 11 passes and a storm comes. Don't vote for Prop 11.
Thank you. This is for the council candidates. Many streets and corners throughout Galveston flood badly after even modest rains. I bet they haven't heard this one. With water not often receding for several hours, what are your specific plans to remedy this problem? Mr. Legg.
Thank you. As alluded earlier, we have hundreds of millions of dollars of CDBG funds here at our disposal, for which we can utilize a vast amount of this to improve and correct our infrastructure. First word, get the drains cleaned, get them cleared, totally fix our streets, fix our curbs, fix our sidewalks. The money is there for us to utilize. We need to do it.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Along with the monies that we're getting and plans already set forth to address a lot of these issues, we got to remember that everybody, I believe, here has said at one time or another, we cannot always depend on federal funds to do our work that we neglect to do year in, year out. One of the things we're working on right now that you will be voting on is to make sure that we are putting funds aside every year to do a capital improvement account. That way we will have money to address these issues every single year. So I would ask y'all to give that serious consideration, know the material that you're voting on, and pass that. Because that's one thing that, again, me talking about open government and staff, giving no matter who's sitting in what position, the truth and the honest opinion of what's going on with our city is how we get direction. So by us giving them directive and them following those directives, we will have monies to fix these issues. Thank you.
Mr. Beatty.
I happen to live on one of those streets that's prone to flooding in times of heavy rains. The storm drains primarily are the culprit, but I think the overall infrastructure of the city lends to itself to the problem. We need a comprehensive plan that will address all of the drainage needs and the plumbing, wastewater, runoff, whatever. We need a comprehensive plan that involves all of the infrastructure needs and an approach that will allow us to address and solve the issues in one fell swoop as much as possible, instead of piecemealing our infrastructure improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Chetty.
Thank you. As far as drainage is concerned, the city has a comprehensive drainage plan. Prior to Ike, there was not money to totally implement that plan, and so it was going to be addressed in phases. Every month you pay a drainage fee as part of your water bill. That money goes towards helping to improve drainage across the island. Some areas of our island are difficult to address and are very costly. The area around 57th and Saladia, that is affected by tidal waters, and it floods very quickly even without a rain. That's a very costly fix on that. And so we do have a plan. We do have some money now. We are addressing those issues, and that's something that we're going to have to continue to address.
Thank you, Norman Papoose.
Vote for Proposition 7 on the charter amendments. I call it the Greenberg Amendment. Before Hurricane Ike hit and we had all this CDBG money, we were supposed to be putting money aside for infrastructure. Wasn't happening. We were supposed to be putting 1% a month away, or 1% a year away, of our general operating fund up to 8%. What would happen if you asked this question, George, and we didn't have the CDBG money? There would be no money to fix our sewers and our streets. You have to vote for that, and you have to put a council in that understands how to hold city staff accountable through financial records. That money should have been set aside for years and years and years. That issue is the only reason, well, not the only reason, but the main reason Steve Greenberg ran for city council last election. Our infrastructure fund was depleted. I have a background in audits. I have a background in asking people how the numbers work. I've worked in London, worked in Washington, and worked in Galveston. I can put the manager's feet to the fire.
Thank you, Mayoral.
I think Norm is correct in saying we need to have a council who follows up on what is going on. My husband, wonderful husband, Chris Robb, a partner at Ernst & Young and an auditor of a public company, now on the finance committee. I asked him, give me a full report on what happened at the finance committee. Our public works director comes in and says, we're under budget again this month. How could we be under budget when we have a city whose streets, drainage problem, septic tanks, sewers that have issues? No one is truly overseeing what's going on. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about our new city manager, but we need people who will sit and follow up and look at the whole big picture to make sure this city can move forward and be the best that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Mike Barella.
Being last, you hear all the good stuff, so you know what I talk about. But anyway, and what they're saying is all correct. We're getting a second round of recovery money. We got CDBG money and stuff. But sooner or later, and this was mentioned too, Galveston's got to stand on their own 2 feet to be independent and not depend on the government for all these funds. These problems have been a long time in place, way before Ike came along. We're using Ike as a crutch, and we should use those funds and get it started. But somewhere along the line, we got to be a little more proactive on how we do. We need to put money away, as he mentioned, Proposition 7. I have some concerns about that. But we need to be more proactive, put money aside. We know these things are going to break down, and we shouldn't wait until completely it's all broke down and we got to spend all kind of funds and we got to go out and get loans to get this fixed and stuff. Galveston's just got to get back its economy and be prepared for these issues as they come up.
Well, thank you. Y'all have all done your homework. Maybe later you can tell us what % of the budget goes to the traffic division's overtime. Okay, this one's for the mayors. There are 7 equal votes amongst the mayor and council. Please define your interpretation of the mayor's role, responsibilities, and powers from your personal interpretation and as described in the city charter.
Well, they actually conjoin, because I've been the mayor for 2 years and I've done almost 48 meetings. So here's how I see it. Number one, you obviously appoint the Galveston Housing Authority commissioners. You also run the meetings. You have the power to put anything on the agenda. I want you to know you also have the power to call a special meeting, but I've never called a special meeting. There's other council members who do that. You can also, well, you're the emergency management director when a disaster is declared. You also are the ceremonial head of government. Now, Steve Greenberg and I have robust discussions about this. I think he wants me to interpret, and he wants you to interpret ceremonial as, you know, the cape and the crown and the scepter like King Vitamin. But what I'm here to tell you is there's more to it than that. Imagine what would happen if this economic development that we've been looking for so long were to come forward and they want to speak to the mayor, just to get an introduction, so that I can make the handoff to the city manager. But if I were to say, no, I can't do that, that's against the city charter.
Vote on it.
Fractionally speaking, I guess it's 1/7. That's what I'd equal. But more than anything, I feel internally I would equal a team leader. I would be someone that would hope to build bridges. It would hope to bring all demographics of Galveston together, to create leadership amongst council, to create common thread, to have one thing that always determines our decisions, which is the love for Galveston and the love for the citizens. That would, of course, not be written in a charter, but that's what I would possess to help lead the city of Galveston in the right direction. I truly hope that this next group that comes in realizes the turning point that we are at. And that's why it's so important to elect people on May 12th that have a common vision, a passion for Galveston, and will never give up the fight. Thank you.
Mr. Rosen.
Mayor Joe laid out what the charter says the mayor can do. The one thing that I can do is build a consensus with the other council members and work together, and we can prioritize the city's needs as far as the infrastructure, and then make sure through instructions to the city manager that he follows through with all the different projects and not leave one project until the one he's on now is finished. We want to complete a project and then move on to the next one. Work with each other.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
All right, yeah, Joe did lay out the formal duties of the mayor, and the way I see the mayor primarily during non-emergency situations is a facilitator with city council members. You really are a partner in 1 in 7, and nothing gets done unless you have four votes with council members to move. I think mayors can be public leaders on particular issues. I think on the college board, I have done that for 6 years. I think in issues regarding economic development, parking meters on the seawall, I've always tried to state my mind. And as a citizen, I think we're all entitled to lead in areas. So I think a mayor is primarily a facilitator. The one power granted to the mayor that I think is very critical this time around, and it is not granted by the charter, it is granted by state law, is the authority of the mayor to appoint the Galveston Housing Authority. The mayor appoints all members of that. If I'm elected mayor, I will not appoint anyone to the Public Housing Authority who holds the viewpoint that we should build a single unit of public housing back on Galveston Island. We have got to get that body to move to a regional solution.
Thank you. All right. Another one for the council candidates. This question came in a number of different forms to our Gaines Secretary at Gmail email, and we also got a couple filled out by hand tonight from our guests here. Let's see. Where did I put it? I wanted to read it just as it was written. If you were on the council, how would you have voted for the 22-story high-rise the council voted in favor of? Rusty? And some of them, of course, already voted on it, so that should be even more interesting. Use your minute to explain it.
Thank you. Yes, I did vote for the high-rise. As a leader, whether it's mayoral, city council, or any other leadership role that you may serve, you must, and I do, I listen to all sides. Pros, cons. Actually, I had a lot of good friends call me up there against it. I had a lot of good friends call me up and said before. I went out and spoke to other entities, both business and individuals who own property in the immediate area. I took all that into account. Then I went a little further than that. I went and looked what it would do to the tax base. What would it do to help bring jobs? And finally, I did a little more research and found out that it's truly an individual's own land. That's not private, that's not public beach, it's private beach. The whole area is private beach. And with all that information taken into account, I did vote for the high rise.
Thank you. Chris Gonzalez.
I too voted in favor of it. I was the one that seconded the motion, and it was a hard second, but in our island growing and it's prospering so where we can stand on our own feet and be able to fund everything we want to do as far as improvements, I had to make that choice. I did speak with the people in there. Most of them thought it was a great idea. Do it. We'd love to see it happen. So that's the reason I supported it. I stand behind it. I think it's a good thing. If I recall, the last 4 years, everything anybody has ever wanted to do has been knocked down. The city has been very against any type of development. 4 years ago, Marquette was the big thing on the block. If we're ever going to change the way people look at us and want to come do business with us, we got to make that change now. And that vote was saying just that. We are open for business.
Thank you. Mr. Beatty.
I don't think the duly established height, density laws, things of that nature should be abrogated at the whim of the city council, even if they have a majority to do so. Those ordinances were established for reasons, and those reasons are still pertinent and still stands. And I think that they should be overturned or modified prior to a vote being taken to abrogate.
Thank you. Mr. Teddy.
As a seated council member, I voted for the project. I believe it should have an opportunity to move forward. It does not mean just because the council supported the specific use permit that the project will be able to be built. There are still a lot of hurdles outside of the city with the General Land Office and others, but in looking at the issue, in speaking with people in the area, and in looking at what opportunities it might provide to the tax base, I voted for it.
Thank you. Norman Papoose.
I would have voted against it. Special use permit. That means we're giving you the ability to do something that you shouldn't be doing. And that just foments feelings of distrust in city council and cronyism. It was done in the name of the tax base. Tax base is not the end-all and be-all. The reason? Because you have to fund that tax base. You have to provide city services. And if you provide city services at a greater rate than the revenue you're getting in, guess what? You're better off without that high rise. Anybody see our traffic division bill lately? How many people here think the Galveston city government is run efficiently? How many people here think that planning doesn't need to be fixed? That's why I would have voted against it. We need to fix our government before we bring that type of project in.
Being that I stand for private property rights, I would have voted for it. I think we need to look at the message that we send if people come to our city with millions to invest and we continue to turn them away. But I do agree that we need to look at all sides, what the effects will be to neighborhoods, what infrastructure is needed. It's a hard decision to make, but I would have voted for it.
Thank you. Mike Burrell.
I'll just tell you right now, I've been against it. I have a problem. We put rules and regulations in place, and then we want to start making exemptions. Where do we draw the line? We put these in place because, the island has, and I'm pro-development. I like development, but I think development needs to fit the community. And I don't think that 20-story building fits sitting in front of the seawall. If it had been moved down the beach, at East Beach, I would have been 100% for it, where the other 20-story plus buildings are at. And I think this is something that is pretty major, and it's going to affect, the seawall and everybody, that works upon there. You got this 20-story building in front of your establishment. I heard somebody said that, if you look east and west, you can still see the beach. And I shouldn't have to look east or west to see the beach, so I would have been against it.
Thank you. And now back to the mayors. Here's one that came in through the door from a guest here in the audience tonight. This is a kind of a tough one, but I'm sure everybody would love to hear your views on this one. Yes. How do you propose to bring back the middle class to Galveston, and how do you plan to make housing more affordable to that middle class? Mr. Jaworski.
So follow me on this one. We have vast amounts of land north of Broadway that right now you would never walk through. Same problem in many American cities in the Rust Belt, Steel Belt. We can do something about that. It's called having a land bank. Now what that means is the city council should should put a needle and give a vitamin B12 injection to our redevelopment authority, which right now is redeveloping nothing. They are simply lording over the tax increment reinvestment zones, not funding their plans and making life difficult generally. Instead, we should turn it into something called a revitalization authority, which then goes and gets land, either by purchase or other legal means, groups it, land banks it, clears it, and then makes incentivized sales to decent regional quality developers. They then, with an agreement called a 360 agreement, which is named after local government code 360, build neighborhoods for sale at affordable prices, and then those 7,000 people that drive on and off the island all day, if we get 10 or 20% of them, you got yourself a deal.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Rollins.
I'd like to give people a reason to want to come to Galveston. If we can be the best community we can be at 48,000 people, then let's do that first. Let's give people a reason when they come visit Galveston to want to stay. Let's give them a reason that they don't need to leave. Let's give our schools a seat at every table of decision. As I said earlier, education in Galveston is the largest economic driver of real estate in the city of Galveston. If we produce exemplary schools with the children we have, I promise middle-income people will come and make sacrifices to the housing stock we currently have. Secondly, we create our own slumlords through the bureaucracy of our fourth floor planning department and how hard it is to make things look better on our island. I would love to fix that.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis Rosen.
I think cleaning up our neighborhoods with strict code enforcement would be a beginning. I think fixing our streets and our roads and our curbs and our sidewalks would be another one. Make it attractive so folks would want to come here. But I propose declaring the surplus land that is the old Magnolia homes as surplus and asking HUD to release it and selling it to a developer and letting a developer come in and develop whatever the market will bring. I think it's the way to go. It'll increase our tax base, which I think is important, and bring some of these families back. I think there's something like our population is down 9,000 since the 2010 census, excuse me. And also we have something over 5,000 folks that are living on the mainland and working here. If we clean our city up and provide some modern, new construction, it will help.
Thank you, Mr. Greg Ruth.
Can you imagine trying to sell your home where the person you're selling it to knows that their tax rate can go to any level? That is what will happen if Proposition 11 passes. How do you convince people to move here when the tax cap can be blown? You can't do it. You've got to make sure that people's property taxes stay low and reasonable and that you provide good services with those taxes. We have tax abatement zones that we can create, TERS zones. We can use 4B sales taxes that are already in the pipeline to improve our community to make it more attractive for people to live here. But something that Bo hit on is exactly right. Education is the single biggest determinant in locational choice for families. And I want to tell you something. I've been coming to this island. I've lived here for 12 years, but I've been coming down here since I was a kid. And what breaks my heart living in this town